"You've been late before," he commented and resumed eating. Well, that was a little disappointing. I had held my breath for nothing. Maybe it was better this way. I was leaving soon anyway. I bought an apartment building with an attached store that was big enough for what I wanted. The pair put a large dent in my savings, but the rent I'd get from the apartments would make me very comfortable. I also set aside money for the baby and had ordered quite a few things to be set up in our new home. Everything was set. I no longer needed Ryan, just as he no longer wanted me. "You should call Tristan to get you. I'm sure you're eager to go home." I sounded bitter, but I couldn't help it. It was my fault for feeling anything for him and having any expectations. This was a physical pleasure arrangement, nothing else. Ryan looked at me like he was a little hurt by my words. "You want me to leave?" I shrugged. "You never stay overnight and it's already late. I assumed you'd want to go home. Driving is out of the question, so just call your assistant. Or I can call him." I grabbed my phone from the table, but he stopped me. "Wait, I'd rather just stay here if you don't mind. I don't feel well enough to move around so much." I raised a skeptical eyebrow. He seemed fine to me, but who was I to kick him out of the apartment he was paying for? "Fine, but you're sleeping in the guest room." "I don't like sleeping with others." He grinned naughtily. "We don't have to sleep." My breath hitched slightly. This man just had to say a few words to make my blood warm. That was the kind of effect he had on me. I abruptly pushed away from the table and stood up. "I'm tired. I'm going to sleep." I left him looking surprised and felt a little satisfied. I was usually accommodating because I felt I had to be. Now I was going to leave and would never see him again. After dimming the lights and getting into bed, I considered putting on an audiobook, but I felt that would irritate me. So I resorted to staring at the ceiling while I silently fumed. Ryan didn't bother to come and check on me. Of course he didn't. He was too proud for that. He was used to women running after him, not the other way around. It was possible that he didn't even realize there was an issue. I don't know when I finally fell asleep, but I suddenly felt a pair of strong arms draw me closer to a warm body. The suddenness made me struggle against the person until I heard Ryan's voice. "Hush, it's just me." I paused only for a few seconds before struggling again. "Let me go." "I told you to sleep in the guest room." "What are you doing in my bed?" Ryan responded by holding on tighter and burying his face in the crook of my neck. "Don't push me away, please. I need you right now." I stilled. I had never heard this desperate and needy tone before. It made me turn around enough to see his face. Even in the dim light, I could see the pleading in his eyes. It alarmed me. "Is something wrong?" He gave me a small smile. "Just let me hold you tonight, okay? That's all." Part of me still wanted to kick him out of the bed, but my heart wouldn't let me. Something was troubling him and he needed comfort. It wouldn't cost me anything to give him what he wanted. I didn't say anything but settled into his arms and put my hand on his arm. I began to pat him rhythmically, just like how my mother used to do when I was a child. We stayed like that for a while before his hand slowly slid down my belly and cupped my most tender area. "Ryan," I protested. "You said you would just hold me." He kissed my neck, causing shivers to run through my body. "I can never help myself when I'm near you." I felt a thrill at his words, the kind that let a woman know that her body could turn a man into putty in her hands. His fingers began moving, probing sensitive spots that made me gasp. Maybe I was the one who was putty in his hands. "Such a responsive little thing," Ryan mumbled into my hair. "I like that." I was a moaning mess by the time he rose above me and settled between my legs, joining our bodies until it felt like he was in my very soul. I didn't know whether to cry or scream, so my mouth released whimpers that sounded like a fervent prayer. "You're mine, Delilah," I heard him growl. "Do you hear me? You're mine and no one else's." His words tipped me over the edge. I detonated violently, thrashing about from the overwhelming pleasure. Ryan kept going like a wild man, flipping over my limp body like I weighed nothing at all. I screamed when his teeth latched onto my shoulder, branding me. His hot tongue followed, lapping at the spot. The pain mixed with pleasure was too much, so much so that I blacked out. but not before hearing him say, "I love you." The sound of water running woke me up the following morning. I stretched and immediately winced. My body had aches and pains that reminded me of my very first time. I never ever thought it would happen with a stranger in a questionable motel, let alone someone who didn't love me. The word love brought up a recent memory of words I wasn't sure I had heard. Ryan had said a few things during our passionate lovemaking, mostly claiming me as his. He had never said stuff like that before. But what had really shocked me was his confession. He had said he loved me. Could he have meant it? Or was it simply something he said without thinking in the moment? I slid off the bed, not bothering to throw on a gown to hide my nakedness. What was the point if I was going to get wet anyway? There was even the possibility of remaining naked for the rest of the day. I bit my lower lip, feeling the stirring of heat in my nether region. My body had barely recovered, but I was already anticipating another lovemaking session. Ryan didn't call it that, though. He was far more blunt, but I had never been comfortable with the word fuck. His phone rang when I was halfway across the room. It was quite early in the morning, not quite 6 yet, so it was probably something or someone important. I hurried to the nightstand to grab the phone and give it to him, but I paused at the name displayed on the screen. It was Isabel, Ryan's first love. I wasn't aware they were still in contact, not after she rejected his proposal months earlier. That was the same night I found him drunk in his car. He had even called me Isabel that night. Now she was calling him. The call ended, but a message soon followed. "Don't forget you promised to take me shopping for your grandfather's birthday gift today. I'm making breakfast, so come by early. I want to make up for our little argument yesterday." She ended the message with a few hearts. Not pink, blue, yellow, or even purple hearts. Red ones. Before I really gave myself time to think, I started scrolling to see their other messages. The more I saw, the harder it was to breathe. My knees gave out and I stumbled onto the bed, sinking into it with a heavy heart. So, the last night I spent with Ryan was the day before Isabel returned to the country. He never came back to see me because he had been spending time with her. And the only reason he had come to see me last night was that he was upset and probably wanted someone to fawn over him and give him an ego boost. It all made sense. "You stupid girl," I whispered brokenly to myself. I had allowed myself to hope for something I had no right to have. That hope had been brief, but it had been potent enough to make me feel like my heart had just been ripped to shreds. Tears blurred my vision. I tilted my head back and blinked repeatedly. I wasn't about to cry over him. It wasn't worth it. The water in the bathroom turned off, prompting me to quickly put the phone back on the nightstand. I realized I was still naked, so I threw on the pajamas I had worn yesterday. It smelled strongly of Ryan and sex. Not a good combination considering what I knew now. The sooner he left, the sooner I could have a shower and decide what to do next. I left the bedroom and headed to the kitchen to make my usual collagen-infused hot chocolate. It was perfect for the colder months and for my skin. Quite frankly, being a rich boy's plaything had more pros than cons, especially if the guy was decent. What was the point of self-respect when your life was in danger? However, I had outgrown this arrangement. It was time to move on. Ryan appeared 10 minutes later, wearing a clean suit. I frowned. "Where did you get the clean suit?" "I had Tristan deliver it this morning," he replied. For some reason, he couldn't meet my eyes. "I have to go. Early meeting. I'll send something extra to your account for your troubles last night." My pride bristled. I wanted to refuse the money, but I was about to start a new life and I was pregnant. Every penny mattered. So I swallowed down the retort lingering on the tip of my tongue and nodded. "Sure, have a good day." I gave him a perfunctory smile and waited for him to leave. He needed to do that soon because I could feel the first hot pinpricks of tears at the back of my eyes. My nose would soon turn red and my lips would tremble. He needed to go now, and yet he lingered. "I'll call you later," I nearly snorted. He didn't seem so sure of that.
"Okay."
His eyebrows rose slightly in surprise. Maybe he expected me to be warmer? Fortunately for me, I didn't care about his expectations at that moment. Ryan hesitated for a moment more before he turned on his heel and left. I released the breath I hadn't known I had been holding. The tears fell the moment the front door opened and closed. So, this was what heartbreak felt like. I might have spent the full day wallowing in self-pity if not for my decision to leave by the end of the week. The rest of the morning was spent closing loose ends and packing to leave. My real estate agent, Gail, promised to take care of everything on her side and awaited my arrival. The woman was a godsend. After such a busy morning, I needed a break. There was a deli in my area that had the best pastrami sandwiches and also served coffee and cake. It was only a 10-minute walk away, so I got my coat, put on a pair of comfy boots, and left the apartment. Fall had turned most of the trees around me into shades of orange, red, and yellow. I was happy that I got to experience all 4 seasons before leaving. The area really was beautiful and peaceful. A few minutes into my stroll, a familiar figure caught my attention further ahead. The man was walking around with his hands behind his back and staring into shop windows. I watched him stop someone, say something, and get a headshake. I knew what I was looking at, or rather, who I was looking at, but my brain hadn't caught up yet. My nervous system, however, was blasting warning signs so loudly and painfully that I doubled up and grabbed my knees. Only one person could pull such a visceral reaction from me. I broke out in a cold sweat despite the cool air, my stomach churning with terrible realization. Mark had found me. He knew where I lived. Most of my things were already packed. I wasn't taking anything besides clothes, toiletries, jewelry, accessories, and a few things I couldn't bear to part with. Everything else would stay in the apartment, even though Ryan had assured me that I could have them after our arrangement ended. My safety came first. Hours passed, and finally it was time to go. My plain black clothes, a cap, and a mask were perfect for hiding my identity without looking too suspicious. I even coughed a bit as I passed a few people in the hallway to indicate that I was wearing a mask due to an illness. My stepfather was a cop and would pick up on anything too obvious. I had the security guard help me take my belongings to the car and slipped him a generous tip for his help and silence. I didn't want him alerting Ryan that I was leaving. He was free to make up any excuse. Thinking about Ryan reminded me to withdraw all my money from the account he had me open to a new one with another bank. He had access to the other account. I didn't want him freezing it out of spite. Only once I was halfway to the train station had all my money moved, and was sure no one appeared to be following me. Did I relax a bit? Not fully. Not yet. I needed to be settled in my new home before then. The train would arrive at my destination early tomorrow morning, so Gail had offered to pick me up. That was one less thing to worry about. "Movin', Miz?" the driver asked. I nodded. Change of scenery. That's good. Move around while you're still young. It gets strangely harder as you get older and put down roots. Where are you moving to? It was an innocent question, but I didn't want to risk anyone having information about my whereabouts. Nearby city, I said. I'm craving a little of the fast life. Good, good. Some excitement is good. I smiled. I had a feeling that good was one of his favorite words to use. Not wanting to talk anymore, I put on earphones and stared out the window. Moments later, a message from Ryan pinged on my phone. Just got a notification that you took all your money from the account. Is something wrong? Now was as good a time as any to end things and block him. He could just use another number to get a hold of me, though. I'd have to get rid of the SIM card in my phone, but I still needed it for now. I'd change it once I get to my new place. Thank you for everything, Ryan. I wish your happiness for the future. That seemed good enough. I blocked his number and set my phone aside. A call from Tristan came in minutes later. It was probably Ryan, so I ignored it. Several more calls came in from different numbers, but I ignored them all. Then the messages started. I didn't read them. By the time I arrived at the station and climbed the train, I had over 30 calls and 27 messages, all ignored. The sooner I get a new SIM card and phone, the better. Gail would likely be able to help me with that. So I'd speak to her tomorrow about it. Today had been one of the longest days of my life, and it was finally over. I was safe and moving far away from anything that could hurt me. If only I could leave my heart and memories behind as well. Sleep claimed me nearly an hour after I boarded the train. My dreams were confusing and full of symbolism. I couldn't make heads or tails of them. Still, I woke up feeling refreshed hours later, filled with anticipation for my life ahead. I just needed to avoid thinking about Ryan, but being pregnant with his child would probably make it challenging. Gail was already waiting for me when I got off the train. Despite it being just after 4 in the morning, she appeared alert and had a wide smile. "You look even better in person," she said, taking one of my suitcases. "So young and fresh. You remind me of myself when I was your age." I smiled at the compliment. "Well, you don't look your age. So I can only hope that I'm just as beautiful in my 40s. Gail laughed. "Kind girl. I'm in my mid-50s, not my 40s. She patted my arm. "Come, let's go and get you settled into your apartment. I arranged everything, but, of course, you'll want to move things around to suit your tastes. I'm sure everything is fine. You've been a wonderful help. I'm thankful for all your help. You've made moving and settling much easier. It's the least I could do after you became one of my biggest clients," said Gail. "The other agents have been green with envy ever since I sold the largest apartment building in town with the store attached." She paused and gave me a worried look. "Are you sure you'll be able to handle everything with the little one on the way?" Gail's eyes traveled to my belly. I put a hand over it and smiled. "I'm hardworking, resilient, and I've always wanted to have my own store. I'll be fine, especially with your guidance, so thank you in advance." The older woman laughed. "Well then, I'll definitely help you succeed in this small town. I'll show you and teach you everything you need to know." She stopped in front of a pickup truck and insisted on loading the bags, saying that pregnant women shouldn't handle anything heavy. Before long, we were on the road, and I was getting my first look at the town in person. It was still dark outside, but the little I could see made me happy. Farmlands, more trees than houses, and apparently, more animals than people was just the right place for me to start again and raise my child. Even though I was planning for my baby's future, it still hadn't quite sunk in that I was going to be a mom. The following weeks passed in a blur of renovations, stocking shelves, meeting suppliers, prenatal appointments, and having Gail take me around to different key community members. Everyone was so welcoming. I almost didn't think about Ryan, but I couldn't quite keep him out of my thoughts no matter how hard I tried. Now, 7 months later, I was heavily pregnant with our baby girl and preparing for her arrival. I had weeks to go before I would meet her, which made me incredibly excited. "You need to rest more, dear," said Gail as I handed her a cup of tea. "Being on your feet all day is just too much." "I'm carrying small, and the doctor said I was perfectly healthy. I'm fine, promise." I sat down opposite her and leaned back in the garden chair. Spring had made everything bloom and come alive, so we were enjoying the scenery in a private section of the apartment building's garden. I bought extra land just to extend the garden because I wanted my daughter to have somewhere to play. I also had a puppy at Jack Russell, and she needed a lot of space to explore. "Oh, before I forget, do you know a Ryan Montgomery?" Gail asked. I paused as my breath caught in my throat. Ryan Montgomery? My voice sounded strange to my ears, as though someone else was talking. I hadn't heard his name said out loud since I left him. Gail nodded and sipped her tea, not noticing my reaction. "My daughter follows him on social media. Apparently there are rumors of him searching for the love of his life." My eyes briefly closed as a sharp pain pierced my heart. So, Isabel had left him again and he was going crazy looking for her. Some things never changed. It was good that I left when I did. I picked up my cup and took a little sip of the herbal tea. It burned my tongue a little. I should have added a little cold water to cool it down a bit. "The strange thing is," Gail continued, "that the woman has the same name as you, Delilah, Kent. What are the odds of that?" The cup slipped from my hands and smashed on the ground, but I didn't care. Gail had just said Delilah Kent, not Isabel Munster. Me, not her. How? Why? "My dear," Gail cried, running to my side. "Is something wrong? Do you feel unwell? Is it the baby?" I shook my head, not wanting her to worry. "I'm fine. I just have buttery fingers today." Gail didn't look convinced, but she returned to her seat after calling my housekeeper to clean the mess. I never thought I'd ever hire anyone to clean my home. But between being a business owner and landlord, I didn't have much time to myself to do all the things I enjoyed. Gail recommended Denise, a woman in her late 20s, to take over all household duties. The broken shards were swiftly removed, and a new pot of tea was brought out. Gail kept up the conversation for both of us, not realizing that I wasn't saying much. My mind was spinning with the information she had shared.